So, what if the very thing we're told protects us actually makes us weaker?
Hmm.
We're talking about safe spaces today. These environments carefully built, supposedly, to shield us from discomfort.
Right.
But here's a thought. Could the ultimate safe space just be, well, a place where your own ability to grow just sort of withers?
It's a fascinating contradiction, isn't it?
Yeah,
We naturally seek safety. It's instinct.
of course.
But what if chasing that safety actually weakens the resilience we need?
Yeah.
The resilience to handle, real life.
Imagine a world where every single challenge, every opinion that makes you uncomfortable is just neutralized.
Yeah. What does that world look like? Is it really a utopia of well-being?
Or is it a generation totally unprepared for anything tough?
It's like trying to grow a tree in a windless biodome.
Right. It never develops the strength to stand up to a real storm.
Exactly.
And it makes me wonder about things like forgiveness. Can you even learn to forgive if you're never uncomfortable?
That's a deep point. Forgiveness often involves grappling with hurt, with feeling challenged.
Mm.
If your whole environment is scrubbed clean of anything unsettling,
Mm-hmm.
do you lose the emotional muscles for that kind of hard work?
The capacity just isn't there.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You need to navigate discomfort to forgive, to heal, really,
Mm.
if everything's smooth sailing.
You forget how to handle waves. I remember this debate years ago. Someone challenged something I really believed in,
Okay.
and my first instinct, shut down, walk away. I told myself, oh, it's mental health, gotta protect myself.
Right. The common rationale.
But looking back, honestly, I was just scared.
Scared of being wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
scared of being wrong, scared of having my ideas picked apart. It was pure intellectual fragility, hiding behind, self-care language.
And that's such a common human thing, that vulnerability.
I think so.
Because we live in this culture that, on one hand, loves stories of survivors,
Mm.
right? People overcoming huge obstacles.
Totally. We lionize resilience.
But then at the same time, we're building these emotional padded rooms.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We demand justice, which is absolutely vital. But where does that cross over into refusing to leave our echo chambers? Refusing to engage with ideas that, might shake us up a bit.
It's a real tension, and it brings up this crucial point, ethics. Your real ethics kind of show up when your safe space gets breached, don't they?
That's sharp. Especially now, like online. Think about those group chats,
But
forums.
where everyone's curated their perfect identity.
Exactly. And then someone drops in a different opinion. What happens then?
What do you do? Protect the space. Keep it
Right.
safe.
Do you risk that comfort for maybe, just maybe, a stronger understanding, even if it feels rocky at first?
That's the knot, isn't it? The modern dilemma in these spaces.
It is, because the pressure to keep the group happy, to
Yeah.
maintain that cohesion, it's immense. Especially if that group feels like part of your identity.
So you face this choice. Do you kind of lie by omission, avoid the hard truths to keep things smooth?
Maintain the illusion of safety.
Or do you speak up? Say the thing that might shatter the comfort, risk getting pushed out.
And that fear of being ostracized, it's primal.
Definitely. Speaking truth to the group consensus feels incredibly risky.
Even if that truth could lead somewhere better, somewhere more, accurate.
It reminds me of that story, maybe apocryphal, maybe not, about the student asking for a trigger warning for Plato.
Ah, yes, I've heard versions of that.
Yeah.
Because Plato made them feel
Intellectually challenged, their words.
right. You have to pause there, don't you?
You do. Is this genuinely about safety, or is it sometimes, maybe often, a fear of feeling unprepared, of not knowing, of just being human and, wrong sometimes?
And that's where the lines get so blurry. Feeling intellectually challenged isn't the same as being unsafe. Not even close.
It's supposed to happen in learning.
Exactly. That discomfort is part of growth. Conflating the two, that severely limits your world.
Which brings me to this quote, or a twist on one. The road to hell isn't paved with good intentions. We know that one. But maybe. It's paved with comfortably vague demands for safety that suffocate genuine strength.
Oof. That hits hard. Comfortably vague demands.
That suffocates strength. Think about that.
It really captures how good intentions, the desire to protect, can backfire. If we're not careful, that drive for comfort just weakens us, stops us engaging properly with the world.
You can even see echoes in history, can't you? Think about the rise of, say, totalitarian regimes.
How so?
It wasn't always, mustache-twirling villains seizing power overnight.
Right, it's often more gradual.
Often it started with ordinary people feeling overwhelmed. Chaos, uncertainty. They just wanted safety. order.
Understandable in chaotic times.
Absolutely. But they retreated into conformity, into groupthink, into ideologies that promised security. And critical thought, that got sidelined.
So evil wasn't necessarily monstrous ambition.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was just the outcome of people choosing comfort over courage.
Exactly. The byproduct of wanting things to just feel safe.
That's a sobering thought. That the pursuit of safety, if it's uncritical, can lead down some really dark paths. Conformity feels secure, but it kills the dissent needed for a healthy society.
So think about it. You listening right now, just take a second. Whose resilience might you have unintentionally bubble wrapped? Who might have missed out on some really crucial growth because you, maybe with the best intentions, just wanted to smooth things over, make it safe for them?
That's a tough mirror to hold up. It requires real self-awareness.
Yeah.
Are we really trying to help them thrive, or are we just uncomfortable with their struggle, or maybe uncomfortable with views that challenge us?
Let's be really honest here. What would you actually prefer? Constant warm affirmation from a group that just echoes you back to yourself?
The echo chamber.
Or the often painful but ultimately strengthening process of having your ideas tested, hammered out, even if it means sometimes you feel alone in your view?
That choice. Comfort versus growth.
Yeah.
That's kind of the core of personal development, isn't it? Validation is nice, it's needed sometimes, but real strength, that often comes from wrestling with disagreement, grappling with things that make you rethink everything.
Think about campus debates, supposedly places for intellectual battle, right?
Supposedly.
But you see the split. Some students demanding silence, shouting down speakers because their ideas are unsafe. Others are actually trying to engage, to do the messy, hard work of intellectual sparring. Which group do you think builds stronger minds, a stronger society?
It's two totally different philosophies, isn't it? One aims to eliminate discomfort. The other sees discomfort as, potentially, fuel for learning.
Okay, rapid fire. Would you shield a kid from every scraped knee? Even if it meant they never learned balance, never learned to ride the bike?
No, of course not. Pain teaches.
Would you silence every critical voice just so your own worldview was never, ever questioned?
That sounds like a tyrant's dream or nightmare.
Would you trade society's long-term resilience for your own short-term personal comfort? Indefinitely.
These hypotheticals really push it, don't they? They make you face the trade-offs. What happens if safety is the only goal?
Here's something I wrestle with personally. I really value compassion. I want to care for people.
Okay.
But I also genuinely believe some ideas are dangerous, like actually harmful. And they need to be confronted head on, not just ignored to keep things feeling safe.
The line. Where is that line between protection and censorship?
It feels like a tightrope walk in a hurricane sometimes.
It's incredibly blurry. It demands real nuance, understanding potential harm, but also the absolute necessity of open debate, free exchange of ideas.
A professor told me once, I've never seen true intellectual strength forged in an echo chamber. Just louder, more brittle conviction. And the irony, he got accused of creating an unsafe environment just for saying that.
Wow. That perfectly shows how slippery that word unsafe can become,
Huh.
how it can be, well, weaponized.
Yeah. What's a necessary challenge to one person is a violation to another.
And sometimes, and this isn't popular to say, people don't need us rushing in to protect them from every little thing.
Right.
Sometimes they need the dignity of their own struggle, of figuring it out themselves. Our attempt to create perfect safety can just trap them.
A gilded cage limits their own ability to build resilience.
Exactly. There's a fine line between support and fostering dependency. Real empowerment often means letting people grapple.
And let's talk about the performance of it all. You see it everywhere online, right?
Oh, yeah.
People declare, this is a safe space, and then, boom, block anyone who offers the slightest disagreement.
And then the next post is about the importance of dialogue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It feels like
Yeah.
virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Protecting the idea of safety without actually doing the hard work of engaging.
That gap between what's said and what's done, it's revealing. Maybe the appearance of safety is more important than the actual exchange of ideas sometimes.
Okay, honesty check time for you listening. Have you ever dismissed criticism? Not because it was wrong, but just because it felt like an attack. Made you feel unsafe.
Have you ever called intellectual discomfort harm, while maybe giving yourself a pass for saying things that might challenge others, all because you needed to feel safe?
That kind of internal inventory. It's tough, but necessary for intellectual honesty. Are we using safety to protect our ego or to actually foster understanding?
I heard about this group prided itself on being radically inclusive.
Okay.
But when someone new expressed a pretty standard mainstream political view, one that just didn't quite fit the group's specific flavor.
They were quietly shown the door.
Pretty much. Pushed out for the safety of the community. What kind of strength is that? That rigid?
That's a great micro example. Pursuing that perfect, homogeneous safe space can just lead to exclusion. It weakens the group's ability to deal with the real, messy world.
Now flip it around. Could your demand for a totally challenge-free zone, your safe space,
Yeah,
be making someone else feel totally unsafe? Unsafe to just be themselves, think freely?
that's a vital perspective shift. How do our demands impact others? Does creating a fortress for ourselves silence people around us? Here's a thought that might sting a bit. Maybe you don't actually want to feel safe. Maybe you just want to feel comfortable, perpetually validated. And maybe that's why you've started mixing up genuine safety with just agreement. Calling any challenge unsafe, calling it progress.
That confusion is dangerous. It lets us skip the hard work of engaging with difficult ideas. We retreat into comfort, mistaking agreement for security.
Look at history again. How many societies ignored the warning signs, retreated into their preferred stories, their safe narratives, while everything was actually falling apart?
It's a depressingly common pattern. Clinging to comforting myths instead of facing hard truths. It shows the danger of narrative control over reality.
Okay, provocative twist. What if this whole safe space thing, at least in some cases, isn't really about genuine safety for everyone? What if it's more about ideological purity?
Like tribalism.
Yeah, tribalism dressed up as care, a way to keep out the unclean thoughts, the dissenting voices.
That's a more cynical take, but it's worth considering. Can the language of safety be used strategically to just police boundaries, rather than foster real dialogue?
Ask yourself, brutally honestly, the strength you feel inside your perfectly curated safe space. Is it your strength, your character, or is it just the strength of the echo chamber walls, the sound of everyone agreeing with you?
That's a critical distinction. Real strength comes from encountering and navigating difficulty, including intellectual difficulty, not from avoiding it entirely.
You think you're building a sanctuary, right, a haven.
Uh,
But what if, without realizing it, you're actually building a really nice cage? Comfortable, sure, but still a cage.
The gilded cage metaphor is powerful. How supportive environments, if they go too far, can end up confining you, shrinking your world.
Which leads to this line, kind of a mic drop moment. The most dangerous demand is the one that promises comfort at the price of courage.
Wow, let that sink in. Comfort at the price of courage. That perfectly sums up the tension we've been exploring. Prioritizing comfort above all else. It can just erode our willingness to face challenges. It undermines resilience, growth.
So let's loop back to the start. That uncomfortable question. In your efforts to create or live in safe spaces, are you really fostering resilience in yourself, in others, or are you just curating an audience that will never, ever challenge your own fragility?
That requires some deep self-reflection, really looking at our motives and the long-term effects of our choices.
And here's maybe an existential jab. What if this relentless chase for safety is just fear, dressed up in self-care language? A clever way to avoid the messy, hard, but ultimately beautiful work of becoming truly anti-fragile. Like Nietzsche talked about growing stronger through stress, not just surviving it.
That challenges the whole idea that constant comfort is self-care. Maybe true well-being involves embracing discomfort sometimes, learning to adapt, thrive because of challenges, not despite them.
Think about this reversal, which is worse in the long run. Facing an uncomfortable truth, painful at first, sure, but it leads to growth, a better understanding, or living indefinitely in a comfortable lie, surrounded by agreement, but always vulnerable to the reality outside that bubble.
That choice, truth or comfort. It's fundamental to integrity, isn't it? Comfort is tempting, but truth, even when hard, is what builds real resilience.
We've started treating challenging ideas like allergens, haven't we?
Right.
Things to be avoided, quarantined.
Yeah, keep them away.
But what if they're more like intellectual vaccines? Exposure makes you stronger, builds immunity to dogma, to groupthink.
The vaccine analogy is potent. Exposure to different views fortifies your own thinking, makes you less likely to fall for simplistic answers.
Picture that kid again, shielded from every fall, every disappointment, every single no. What kind of adult does that create?
Can they navigate the real world? The inevitable bumps and bruises of life? Or are they just stuck in that fragile bubble forever?
It highlights how important struggle is. Facing setbacks is how we learn to cope.
Absolutely.
Okay, quick self-audit. Right now, Think about an uncomfortable conversation you dodged this week, an opinion you ignored or shut down.
Hmm.
Now be honest. Whose growth did you potentially stunt right there? Yours? Theirs? Both?
That kind of reflection.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable, yeah, but it's how you spot those patterns of avoidance,
Mm.
understand their impact.
Here's some deadly praise for you. Imagine being so protected by your allies, so wrapped in agreement, that nobody around you even dares to offer a perspective that might challenge you, that might make you actually think.
The absence of challenge feels good short-term, sure, validating,
Yeah.
but long-term, it's a huge block to growth, to self-awareness, to understanding the world and its complexity.
A friend told me this once. It was so revealing. My university felt so safe, so supportive. Then I graduated.
Uh,
And I realized I hadn't learned how to argue, how to handle real disagreement. I only knew how to agree or how to shut up.
wow. That starkly shows a potential downside of overly protective environments.
Yeah.
You're just not ready for the world outside. Engaging in respectful disagreement is a crucial skill.
So what's the ethical cost of chasing ideological comfort all the time? Especially when the world out there demands grit, negotiation, the ability to just stand dissent without falling apart.
It points to a potential disconnect, doesn't it, between the sheltered spaces we build and the reality we actually live in. Is the comfort preparing us or isolating us?
Let's break a myth here. We say shutting down unsafe speakers is about critical thinking, but how is that fundamentally different from old school book burning?
The impulse behind it?
Yeah, isn't the impulse often the same? Suppress ideas we find dangerous or just too uncomfortable? Didn't Socrates face exactly that?
That comparison forces us to look at potential censorship, even when it's wrapped in nice words like safety. Silencing voices, no matter why, has huge implications for open inquiry.
And think about this trap. You don't need to be a dictator to crush dissent.
No.
You just need to successfully label disagreement itself as violence, as unsafe.
Ah, yes, the semantic slide.
Suddenly, any opposing view can be dismissed, any critic silenced, all in the name of protection.
Equating words with violence is a really potent way to shut down debate. It bypasses the need to actually engage with the substance of the argument.
And the crucial mirror question for all of us: who gets to decide what safety means for everyone else?
Yeah, who's the arbiter?
Is it you? Your social media feed?
Yeah.
The loudest person? The most emotional?
Because safety is subjective, it means different things to different people. Do we allow for that complexity, or do we try to impose one narrow definition based on our own feelings?
I'll share something personal. I used to really believe creating these perfectly safe spaces was pure empathy, being a good ally.
Okay.
But looking back, I have to admit, maybe part of it, for me, was also about control.
How so?
Controlling the environment so my beliefs weren't challenged too often, so I could stay comfortable. It's uncomfortable to admit that.
But that kind of self-awareness is huge. Recognizing our own mixed motives lets us evaluate the real impact of these spaces more honestly.
You know, Carl Jung said, what you resist persists. What if, by resisting all discomfort, all challenge, we're just making ourselves weaker, collectively, less able to deal with reality?
Jung's point about resistance, it's paradoxical, isn't it? Avoiding the very things that could make us stronger, more adaptable.
Just take a quiet moment. Feel it. Can you sense maybe a strength you might have traded away for comfort? A little less capacity for debate, for standing your ground, for navigating disagreement? Is there something missing?
That quiet check-in can be powerful, tapping into that intuition about trade-offs we've made.
Have you ever stayed silent? Not because you agreed, but just because speaking up, disagreeing felt too risky, too unsafe.
That's self-censorship. It's so common, driven by fear. It shows the chilling effect when psychological safety feels absent.
Ultimately, this idea of perfect total safety, it's an illusion, right?
In this world, absolutely.
And chasing that illusion costs something. And the cost might just be our ability to actually face reality in all its messiness, to meet its challenges and come out stronger.
Accepting uncertainty, building adaptability, that's crucial. Relying on an illusion of safety leaves us fragile.
Maybe sometimes you're not the noble protector of the vulnerable you imagine yourself to be.
Ouch.
Maybe sometimes you're just a connoisseur of your own comfort, using safety as a shield against anything that might ruffle your feathers.
That's a sharp but necessary distinction to consider.
Yeah.
Are we driven by genuine concern for others or just avoiding our own discomfort?
If you had to choose, no more excuses.
Yeah.
An uncomfortable truth that shatters your worldview but sets you free.
Versus
A comforting lie that keeps you trapped in a familiar story.
that choice
You choose.
or comfort. It defines so much about us and about our societies.
You can't get past needing constant validation from others until you face the possibility that the safety you crave is just avoiding
Hmm.
the work of independent thought,
Mm.
of forging your own beliefs, even when it's hard.
That reliance on external approval, it really hinders self-discovery. True growth needs the courage to think for yourself, even if you stand alone.
Imagine that future society again. Everyone coddled, shielded from every offense, every challenge. What happens to art, to science, to progress?
Would anything interesting even happen? Or just stagnation, comfortable stagnation?
That scenario really shows how challenge, questioning, pushing boundaries, that's often where creativity and progress come from. Too much comfort can kill it.
Hmm.
Here's a quiet little explosion for you. Demanding emotional safety. It sounds noble, right?
On the surface, yeah.
But it's never neutral. It's always subtly a power play, shaping what gets said, what doesn't, disguised as therapy, maybe.
Recognizing the power dynamics within safety talk is key. Is it about collective well-being or controlling the narrative?
When future generations look back at us at this time, this age of hypersensitivity, what will they say you defended?
Hmm.
The hard, messy search for truth, or just the temporary comfort of your own feelings?
That long view really makes you think about the legacy we're creating. Are we building resilience or fragility, understanding or division?
Maybe. Maybe being a strong adult today means embracing unsafety.
How do you mean?
Living on the edge of what you know. Being willing to be broken down and remade by new ideas, challenging views.
Reframing discomfort not as a threat, but as fuel, as necessary for growth.
Well,
That willingness to be challenged. It's a sign of maturity.
I'll confess again, I've definitely chosen comfort over courage more times than I like. We all do, probably.
It's human.
But I've also learned, usually the hard way, that real growth, the kind that changes you, it almost never happens in the comfort zone.
That's the real discomfort to fear, isn't it? The discomfort of staying stuck.
Yeah. That shared struggle,
Yeah,
it's real. Acknowledging it is the first step to embracing challenge.
exactly.
We're all trying to figure this out, right? You listening, us talking, this pull towards comfort, this fear of the storm. But maybe here, just talking about it, we can acknowledge that tension without needing a trigger warning for the conversation itself.
Creating that space for honest dialogue, even about tough stuff, is vital for critical thinking, for courage, for understanding.
So let's bring it all back. That first question. If extreme safe space culture risks making us weaker, what kind of adult are you choosing to become right now? Are you leaning into comfort? Or are you actively seeking out the kind of discomfort that actually builds resilience?
That puts the responsibility right back on each of us to really examine our relationship with comfort and challenge and
Well,
choose growth.
And remember this, maybe above all, you are not your safest moment. That feeling is fleeting. And you're not defined only by your most triggered moment either. You are the resilience you build, brick by uncomfortable brick, in that space between fear and the freedom that comes when you face it.
That's a powerful way to frame it. We actively build our own resilience. Challenge is the pathway to strength, understanding, freedom.
If any part of this deep dive made you feel defensive, made you recoil a bit, maybe go back to that part. Those points of resistance, they often show you exactly where your next growth edge is.
Noticing our defenses is incredibly insightful. So
Yeah.
it shows us our assumptions, our vulnerabilities, where we can dig deeper.
And if this resonated, if you felt that flicker of uncomfortable truth, maybe share this with that person you know who really champions safe spaces.
Gently.
Gently, yeah, but firmly. Invite them into this kind of unsafe conversation. See if their idea of safety includes the uncomfortable work of real intellectual growth.
Encouraging that open communication, even on tough topics.
Mm.
It's how we build understanding, stronger communities.
Because, really, at the end of the day, we have to ask, is chasing safety always self-care, or is it sometimes just fear? Dressed up nicely, stopping us from doing the hard, vital work of becoming truly anti-fragile, able to thrive, not just survive.
That final question really pushes us to look at our deepest motives.
Yeah.
Is our pursuit of safety helping us grow and engage with the world, or is it holding us back?
This was the deep dive. We don't tell you what to think. We ask why you've stopped questioning what makes you strong or what keeps you weak.